Just get one. It's called Giamui, okay? And suck and chew, okay? Why are you laughing? Suck and chew. Like that. Okay.
I am in Manila, the capital of the Philippines, and it's a hectic, noisy city. And on top of that, I landed in a hectic, noisy district, Chinatown. And of course, the Chinese influence on the Philippines is big, since it's their biggest neighbor, but so is the Spanish and the American influence as well. I've been invited to an old Chinatown food tour.
Because that's supposed to be sweet. Okay? It's plum.
Our guide, who, even though he's a Filipino with a Chinese background, is called Ivan, also told us a lot of exciting stuff about the history of Chinatown.
See ya tonight.
So Ivan, the tour is over now, and this old Manila walks that you do. We were on the Chinatown food tour.
Yes.
Can you, because I'm going on this bus and you're not, so can you in like 30 seconds tell me what we ate today?
Well, a lot of what we ate are essentially neighborhood local specialties. And the idea of this tour was to introduce to you a community in our city, a historic community, by tasting the food. So it's kind of like learning history to your tummy.
Yeah.
And that's what we did for today.
Yeah, yeah. And we started out with
A spring roll. It's called lumpia.
Yeah? But it's not a fried spring roll.
It's not a deep fried. It's a freshly rolled spring roll with veggies and a whole lot of stuff. And then we also had tofu. We had a special kind of noodle. We had pastries. We had mango soup. Now we had dumplings. So there's a whole lot of things that you can eat in Manila's Chinatown.
Yeah.
And that's why the best way to discover it is by walking and eating.
And if you're in Manila, you go to oldmanilawalks.com.
It's oldmanilawalks.com. We do a series of walks around the old city, not just for Chinatown.
Yeah, cool. Thanks.
Hope you can visit us.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
And
I'll see you tonight.
As you might be able to sense, I have landed in a hectic place this Thursday afternoon. But when I arrived to the airport in Dubai Tuesday night, full of expectations and excitement over finally reaching Asia, it looked a lot different. I'm at Dubai International Airport and about to board my plane to Manila in the Philippines, and it's been quite a night. One thing is that I got here yesterday night and I found out that my flight was postponed 24 hours. So I was booked into a hotel close by and spent the entire day there, and then got back to the airport, Terminal 1 here in Dubai at 8 o'clock, even though my flight wasn't until 10 minutes past 11. So I like to be in good time, and thank God I did, because when I got to the check-in counter, they said, when are you leaving the Philippines? And I said, well, I don't know. I'm a long-term traveler. I don't even know where I'm going. And he said, very seriously, oh, you need to know. I do? Okay. I guess I'm still a bit of a rookie in this whole travel thing. I didn't buy a ticket out of the country, and apparently they won't let me into the country without a ticket out of the country. So I immediately went to a ticket office in the airport and said, where can you help me find a ticket out of Manila in about 2 weeks' time? It's got to be the cheapest you can find, and I almost don't care where I'm going. And he was looking and saying, oh, how about Bangkok? I said, yeah, okay. And he gave me a price, and that sounded a bit steep. It was like $550, and I know that there are a lot of very cheap airlines in Asia. So I said, oh, you gotta do better than that. But instead, I went online myself on my phone and found a ticket, and it was a tenth of that, almost. So very cheap flight, and I guess in 2 weeks' time I'm going to Hong Kong. Well, that's what it seems like. So I got back and got my boarding pass, went through customs, went through security, got on a train to drive to another terminal here in Dubai. Everything's big here, you know. And then I got to the gate and found out that the plane was delayed another hour. So here I am with a cup of coffee, just waiting and getting ready to board in like 15 minutes time. So everything's good, but quite hectic. Here are some facts about the Philippines in the southeastern part of Asia. It's about the size of Italy, but it's spread out over 7,107 islands. And there are quite a lot of Filipinos. Wikipedia says 89 million inhabitants, but the people I spoke to says that there are around 100 million. It would be too extensive to review the entire history of the country, as it has been quite chaotic, but I have to mention just a few highlights. It was under the Spanish control for 333 years, from 1565, and then under US control for 48 years until 1946. And then I'll skip over the fact that from 65 to 86 they had some years with a pretty bad guy called Marcos. So the Spanish and the American influence is apparent. The Philippines is the most Western-oriented country in Asia. Most of the people are fairly fluent in English, possibly also Spanish, but I didn't really test that. Manila is a city where the traffic is even more insane than anything I've seen before, and I've seen some pretty hectic places, for example in Mumbai and Tehran. When I landed in Manila airport yesterday, I jumped in a cab to drive the 5.9 kilometers to the place I was going to call home for the next 6 days. It almost took an hour, but it was cheap, only 50 pesos, around $2. Anyway, I had plenty of time to observe Manila that slowly passed by outside the cab window. I saw slums, worn Spanish buildings, and even skyscrapers of glass and steel. Everyone changes lanes constantly, without the traffic moving faster, and the horns were used non-stop. And everywhere around us, the traffic roars, and for the first time I see the festive jeepney. When the Americans left the country after the Second World War, they left behind a great number of military vehicles, and with a bit of creative Philippine ingenuity and the welding devices, they extended the vehicles and turned them into small buses. The colorful jeepney that are seen everywhere in Manila. They're decorated in all the colors of the rainbow with sparkles and brightly colored lamps. It's not all of them that are rebuilt Jeeps, but they all have the same characteristic front of the Jeep. And they are, as mentioned previously, a bit longer, so there are room for 16 to 20 people aboard. You just jump on board from behind, there's no door, and then you send up some coins to the driver.
Number one, all of these areas that I have mentioned under tropical cyclone signal are warned of possible landslides and flash floods in low-lying areas.
Back at the hotel, I turned on the TV and saw that Karen was on the way to the country.
As of 4 o'clock p.m., Typhoon
Karen, the typhoon.
5 kilometers east of Infanta Quezon.
Even here in Manila, people are taking down signs so they won't be taken by the storm. But none of the locals seem to worry. Maybe we'll get a bit of rain and wind, but nothing serious.
Typhoon Karen is expected to hit land in Aurora province.
They say it's gonna hit up north. There's just a small detail. According to the plan, I'm going up north from Monday to Wednesday. But it's not more than 50 kilometers or a 3-hour drive. But let's see.
I'd like to greet you all magandang umaga, which means good morning.
Right now, I'm on a bus on my way out of the vibrant city of Manila.
I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Dennis, but you can all call me Blue because that's what most of my friends call me.
I received a unique opportunity to spend 3 days with an organization that helps the poor in the country.
Just to give you a bird's eye view of what we're going to be doing today, we will be going to Gawad Kalinga.
It's an NGO project that goes under the name Gawad Kalinga, and their purpose is to stop poverty for 5 million Filipino families by the year 2024.
So for the weather today, we're expecting a bit of a rain because of the typhoon.
The first day we're going to work in a slum. We're going to help mold the foundation for some houses to replace the crumbling shacks that would otherwise stand in this neighborhood. And these new houses is the kind of house that would stay there even after a typhoon.
Yeah, this is Gawad Kalinga, volunteer.
This guy is called Edmund. He's the leader of the team who arranged this trip for us.
And we are going to visit communities like this one. This is like a pet project of Gawad Kalinga, wherein they give houses to the less fortunate, the persons with disabilities, and then they are the ones being encouraged to build houses on their own.
There's a lot of disabled people in this slum that we are currently in. There's especially a lot of blind people who works as masseuses.
So these houses that are being built, because behind us there's a house that looks like a little bit of wind it's gonna tip over.
Yes. These are like people who are living in slum areas.
Yeah.
That's why Gawad Kalinga is giving them the opportunity to build a house of their own.
I was wondering how many of the 100 million Filipinos live in slum areas. So I've been doing a bit of research on this, but I couldn't find the exact number for the whole country. In Manila alone, there are an estimated 4 million slum dwellers as of 2014, and that's only in Manila. I also found out that more than 25% of the population in the Philippines as a whole fell below the poverty line, according to data from the National Statistical Coordination Board. That's 25 million people, and those are the people that Gawad Kalinga wants to help. Let me tell you a little bit more about the organization Gawad Kalinga. They've built houses in thousands of slum areas around the country. However, the residents have been a big part of it themselves, because some of the point about the project is that you should build houses for yourself. If I translate Gawad Kalinga from the Philippine language Tagalog to English, it means to give care. And that is the goal of the organization. And equally important, they want to restore the dignity of the poor. And the words we hear over and over again is walang iwanan, nobody left behind. Our task is to help a little for a few hours by moving gravel in wheelbarrows up a steep hill, then mixing water with cement with a shovel, filling buckets with it, and then carry it up to those who are in the project, casting the very foundation. It's insanely hot and physically hard work. And even though we're sweating, we're all thinking whether we really help or we were just getting in the way.
I have a question. Did we actually help in any way today?
Okay. So
Or did we just slow everything down?
Yes, we did move gravel and we did mix some cement, but we didn't feel so efficient.
doing some other
Kurtam
stuff
from the Gawad
helping in
Kalinga
building
organization
homes.
tells us
And
that of
sometimes
course we have.
The mere transferring of gravel and sand gets left behind, and it causes delay also to the construction process, because some of the skilled workers, should there be no volunteers, would really have to do the transferring themselves rather than do some real work, real skilled labor. So with your question, yes,
Okay.
we really help.
Checking.
But in the same breath, he says that it has also the signal value.
Volunteering is in GK is really ultimately founded on us giving the message of hope to my fellow Filipinos, especially coming from foreigners like you guys. The message is very well sent and very clear that even us have the right and the responsibility also to help each other out, especially those Filipinos that could also help.
This is incredibly important for those who live here, that they can see that people from the outside wants to help. Gawad Kalinga was founded by a great, charismatic, white-haired Filipino. His name is Tony Mulatto. He's somewhat of a father figure, and they all call him Tito Tony, Uncle Tony. These days he spends much of his time traveling around the world, giving speeches and finding people who will support the project. One of those who randomly heard of the project was a Brit named Dylan Wilkes, a young entrepreneur from England. When he was 20 years old, in the middle of the 90s, he started a small company, and 5 years later he sold it for £2.6 million in cash and £3 million in shares. All of a sudden he was the 9th richest man in England under 30. Actually, he was only 25. And even though he bought the red Ferrari, as you should, he did not feel truly happy. He was lacking some meaning in life. Then he randomly heard of Tony Mulatto's project on the other side of the world, and he went to the Philippines and offered Tony $100,000.
And my intent was just to make a donation. I offered $100,000 to Tony Mulatto.
Surprisingly, as he explains in a TEDx talk, Tony's response was,
I don't want your money.
"Thank you, but I'll only take your money if you come and tell us what you think we should do with them."
Why don't you come back and help us to decide how to use that money?
And so he did.
What I saw when I got here really changed my life. It was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen. Gawad Kalinga. Places that used to be slums that were now beautiful, peaceful communities.
It was his plan to be there for 6 weeks,
My plan was to stay for 6 weeks.
but now, 13 years later, he's still here.
But I fell in love with Gawad Kalinga, fell in love with the Philippines, fell in love with his daughter, who's right here.
He fell in love with the Philippines, with the project, and with Tony's daughter Anna, who he's now married to. And he's a big part of running some of Gawad Kalinga's many projects. And then we're going to meet the most important people. We're going to play with the wonderful children of the slum.
Hello.
They are smiling, silly and spontaneous, and exactly as goofy as children in every other country. And they are very curious about my microphone. We're going to do the musical chairs and dance freeze with these children, the future of the Philippines.
Are you ready? Yeah! Kids, are you ready? Yeah! Oh, ito na.
A wonderful, life-affirming afternoon. Before we leave the slum, Kurtam tells us that the motto of Gawad Kalinga is Walang Iwanan, which means nobody left behind.
The chant of GK, once we say walang iwanan, just say hoo-ha. Once I say hoo-ha, it gets more tricky. You say walang iwanan. Okay? Walang iwanan? Hoo-ha. Hoo-ha? Walang iwanan. Thank you guys.
If you like this podcast, please subscribe in iTunes or your podcast app. You can find me on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and all that. See all the details on my website. It's theradiovagabond.com in English and radiovagabond.dk in Danish. My name is Pallabo, and I gotta keep moving.